Yes, The Truman Show already has an odd premise, in the way that a corporation locking a baby in a gigantic existential prison ball so the entire world can watch every single moment of their lives is odd. But that oddness becomes full-on horror if we replace human whoopee cushion Jim Carrey with a wacky lady. Because here's the thing, Hollywood's got some weird assumptions about masculine and feminine roles, and to be honest, maybe we all do. So let's lock Trudy's fine behind up in an indoor island jail and see how that makes us feel. I'm curious if it remains a beloved family movie classic. Regardless, you're watching Gender Swap, I'm Allie, and this is The Trudy Show.
I'm not gonna make it.
While the in-universe Truman Show has a certain voyeuristic appeal, there's another layer of appeal to watching a woman without her knowledge. There's a reason Pornhub doesn't have thousands of videos of dudes being filmed in showers and changing rooms, you know?
Truman's been terrified of the water ever since.
What I'm saying is that incels would crank it to the Trudy Show, endlessly. The thing's on 24/7.
I can't believe he married Merle on the rebound.
Now, in the show's defense, a helpful pervert informs us that viewers never see anything sexually explicit. They turn the camera away and play some music.
You don't see anything.
Viewers no doubt heard countless short bursts of the special "He's Got His Dick Out" music during Truman's teenage years, but I digress.
Girls gotta be careful.
Now, imagine Ed Harris's Kristoff up there in the clouds, noticing that ratings suddenly spike whenever Trudy has her bare feet up on the table.
Fade up music.
Wouldn't Kristoff lean into that a little bit? Make sure her office goes shoe-free for the environment? Even if Kristoff keeps his intentions pure, a non-trivial portion of the Trudy Show's audience is going to get excited whenever the poor woman so much as bends over.
Bravo!
But okay, we can't control what incels will do. That is, angrily jerk it to a static JPEG of a mayonnaise jar and yell about how mayo should be equally distributed amongst the male population. So, let's look at the Trudy Show's onset issues, starting with Trudy's husband. In college, Trudy falls for a random extra, but the show's producers want her to hook up with the hunky Hank. So the extra is yanked from the show while Hank throws himself at Trudy, then they get married and start, you know what they do. Now, sex under false pretenses is called rape by deception. That's also the name of my death metal band. Sex needs to be consensual, but if you're only getting consent because you're impersonating someone or claiming that the president ordered you to have sex or lying about what that weird wart is on your crotch, you're not providing all the information that should inform consent. The Truman Show glosses over this because, you know, men in pop culture are always horny, and what straight man wouldn't want to mash potatoes with Laura Linney, right?
You're soaked.
But our Trudy shacking up with a male actor who's been chosen for her is pretty gross, especially since the show's spouse initiates sex whenever Trudy starts questioning the reality she's trapped in.
Come to bed.
Throw in a best friend who encourages Trudy not to ask questions, and add the show's plan to eventually show the world's first
On-air conception.
and you've got the basis of a 5-part documentary called The Trudy Deception. But that doesn't even scratch the surface, because a big part of the show's programming is trying to force Truman into becoming a father, even though he's pretty resistant to the idea. That sucks, obviously, but it's downright Orwellian for Trudy. For starters, it'd be quite a bit easier to impregnate her without her consent, given that the producers control every aspect of her life. They could easily swap out her birth control with placebos, or never even introduce her to the idea of birth control in the first place, and force her school to teach abstinence-only education. And what if Trudy doesn't want to have a baby once she's impregnated, or if there are complications during her pregnancy?
He was curious from birth.
So, to recap, Trudy will be coerced into sex, manipulated into becoming pregnant, forced to give birth against her will, and possibly actually allowed to die on TV if there are complications? Can you imagine the ratings? Only on NBC. But enough about what's quickly becoming just normal life for American women. Let's talk about attempted murder. Trudy has been conditioned from birth to be terrified of leaving town. And you can tell Kristoff is a trailblazer, because a man getting to decide whether a woman is allowed to travel has since become mainstream Republican policy. But Trudy's escape attempt, and the woman hunt that follows, is somehow even more sinister once Kristoff starts pressing all of his attempt murder with weather buttons. Fairly or not, we process violence against men and women very differently, which is why movies where a man with incredible resources at his disposal hunts another man is a thrilling action movie, while a man hunting a woman is a horror movie, or at least an action movie that touches on themes of intimate violence like Black Widow. Meanwhile, viewers betting on whether Trudy survives would read less like commentary on our relationship with media and more like an impromptu blood sport. Seriously though, imagine a man going into work and proudly being like, "Hey, who owes me $50? Trudy died this weekend just like I said she was going to."
Are you not entertained?
On the plus side, all of this madness can be stopped with one more simple change. If Kristoff becomes Christina, then the Trudy Show would never get made, because there's no way Hollywood would ever give an eccentric woman the $4 gazillion needed to pursue a wildly original idea. But actually wait, let's dig into that a little bit more. Truman's whole thing is that he's the perfect everyman. Everybody sees themselves in him and his experiences. He is a blank canvas on which viewers can paint their selves. But that's because he's a nondescript white dude, and for whatever reason, male is often seen as the default.
Everyone listens to me, no matter how dumb my suggestions are.
BoJack Horseman creator Raphael Bob Waksberg explained this phenomenon a few years ago while answering a question on his Tumblr. He claims, in comedy, people often assume comedy characters as inherently male, unless there is something specifically female about them. He explains how he didn't like or understand a specific joke in his own show when the characters were changed from male dogs to female dogs like this. The thinking comes from a place that the cleanest version of a joke has as few pieces as possible. For the dog joke, you have the thing where the tongue slobbers all over the business person, but if you also have a thing where both of them are ladies, then that's an additional thing, and it muddles up the joke. The audience will think, why are those characters female? Is that part of the joke? The underlying assumption there is that the default mode for any character is male, so to make the characters female is an additional detail on top of that. He goes on to clarify that he believes this thinking is wrong, but it just shows how baked in some of these assumptions are. If a man does something, we often accept it at face value. If a woman does it, sometimes we'll filter it through the lens of, okay, a woman is doing this. Interesting. How is her womanness affecting what she's doing? And it's not just gender stuff. People also often seem to assume that white is default. On the 4th episode of Master of None, 2 Indian American actors auditioned for a show, only for the producers to claim that only one of them can be cast on the 3-character show, because while one Indian American actor makes a show diverse, 2 Indian American actors transform it into an Indian sitcom. And could audiences ever possibly see themselves in someone or something so mystical, so exotic, so different as Aziz Ansari? I don't know. And that's why the Trudy Show would likely flop, no matter how much mileage they would get from weird pervert viewers. In fact, that's the whole thing, right? Voyeuristically watching a woman might satiate some weird need, but it's not really a stepping stone into emotional engagement. Would audiences sincerely be interested in the interior lives of a not dude? Would viewers wonder if the show is now about being a woman somehow? You know, some dude in the comments would be yelling about how the woke-ass communist program is trying to brainwash us into caring about women, which is actually what's probably happening in this video's comments too. I'm not gonna check. So, is it still a classic? Probably not, because it never got made in the first place. And besides, statistically, nobody wants to hear a woman talk that much. But if it did... Listen up, producers. Huge rating spike from the Weirdos community when Trudy took her shoes off. We're gonna need to get her shoes off as much as possible. Big product placement just came in from Heinz. We need her to buy ketchup, but she also needs to, at some point, put it between her cleavage. More feet, people, more feet! We're gonna need Trudy to sit on a cake this week if somebody can help manufacture a situation in which Trudy would sit on a cake. Slow her down, slow her down. She needs to eat that hot dog, but she needs to eat it a lot slower. We're gonna need Trudy to act like a horse. Hey, Hank, you know how things have started to feel a little stale between us and we were looking for ways to reinvigorate our relationship and get me a little more excited in the bedroom and other places like that? Well, I have some really exciting news, and I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I think I'm gonna start trying stand-up comedy. Get the weather machine ready? We need to kill her.